to the Innovator Series. Today we have Hed Kovetz, CEO and co-founder of Silverfort. Silverfort, founded in 2016, the Series C startup, provides a unified identity protection platform. I think they're actually the first identity-born platform to actually have security as part of the product day one, and probably the most disruptive IAM company since the birth of Okta or even Auth0. Hed, thanks for doing this today.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Great. I should probably start with, I assumed you guys see yourselves as an identity company, in that sort of Gartner world of identity access management. Like, is that how you guys see yourself?
That's a great question. So actually, we do see ourselves as a security company for identity, which is why you mentioned earlier Okta, which is interesting. We don't see ourselves as a company playing in the same space as Okta, because we see the companies like Okta as identity infrastructure companies, right? IAM providers. They can obviously provide security features for their own platform, just like the other identity providers can. But if you think about it, there has to be some kind of cross-platform solution that just gives you security across all those silos of identity infrastructure. And that's what we want to be, right? We want to give you that unified layer of security on top of all the IAM solutions that only see their own piece of the puzzle at the end of the day.
It's a brilliant concept, and it's crazy to me that, you guys starting in 2016, it's crazy to me that this identity sort of industry started in, early 2000s, late 90s, and like this wasn't a thing, right? We were building all these identity connections, and nobody thought to like, let's go see if these connections are actually coming from valid places and make sure that they're all sort of like, visibility on the logs and the lateral movement. That wasn't a thing.
I think it's because identity was born before there was cybersecurity, right? At least as a concept, and it grew as a mix of infrastructure and security. You had your login and your password. It was always kind of together. That made sense for a while, as long as you had one identity infrastructure, on-prem probably. That was fine. You could have local security features. I mean, they weren't great, but you had some. But then, as companies started to move to hybrid environments, to multi-cloud environments, there's no single identity anymore. Some companies might have Active Directory on-prem, Okta for the cloud, they have Entra for Azure, they have all these pieces, right? And suddenly it doesn't make sense to use security locally in each of them. It's kind of like, think about buying endpoint security from Lenovo and Dell and Apple individually, right? That only works on their own type of laptops.
Right.
Doesn't make sense. You want one that works on all of them, that has the full context, and that's what we are to identity. We are that kind of layer of security.
You make a really good point in how this was sort of missed for so long, in that, I remember when we were doing the first syncs between NT and AD and disparate databases, we were also pen testing companies that didn't have a firewall yet. So like the trajectory of the IAM industry went one way and the trajectory of the security industry went another way. And nobody, until you and your co-founders came along, said, wait a second, we should probably overlay all this with one platform.
Exactly.
So, let's back up a little bit because we kind of jumped in right there. But I'd love to start, how you came to this, but really how you came into security as a whole. Maybe I don't know if you want to start at your, pre-security. Maybe I saw that you used to volunteer for an ambulance. I mean, that's sort of fits in the vein of like solving problems, or started your time at the 8200, which is probably the more interesting piece.
Yeah, I've done a lot of things, as you mentioned, volunteering. I thought for a while there that I might, go into medicine. I was actually an artist when I was very young. I thought I might, become a painter. So there was a lot of things, but then I went to Unit 8200, which is like, to those who don't know, it's kind of like the equivalent of the NSA, right? Where you do kind of cyber campaigns, and I became a group leader there, managing several teams that were doing these cyber campaigns. on the offensive side. And after that, I went to work as a product manager, in the cyber industry doing the defense side. So I kind of got to see both sides before realizing that I want to start my own company.
Were you at the time seeing, was the identity sort of space, the sort of threat landscape of stolen identities and lateral movement, was that on your radar back then?
For sure. I think that anyone who's done cyber on the offensive side knows that identity is kind of your go-to method. I think we see hackers realize that as well, obviously, that why would you try to do all these, super complex zero-day type attacks if you can just steal someone's password or social engineer them to give you their password, which, in a large company, you can probably get one person to do, and then log in through the front door. It's kind of like the weakest spot, right, in enterprise security. We also realized over time that, or at least that's what we believed, that identity will only become more and more important. Because we thought that, once people will gradually move to kind of working from anywhere. Now this was obviously before COVID, but we thought that, maybe people will move more and more to working from anywhere, and they will use any kind of device, and then, then you don't really have network security anymore because everybody's everywhere. And you don't really have endpoint security everywhere because I can probably use my personal device. And identity really becomes your last line of defense in a way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's or lowest hanging fruit, right? So
I think attackers know it, right? We see it in almost every data breach.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, why hack? Why hack a Stack Overflow when you can just grab a service account password from GitHub, and off you go.
Exactly. And
did you meet Eron and Matan, your co-founders, in 8200, or did you meet them after?
Yes. We all met, years ago when we were 18 and got to work a lot together. So we knew each other well. And we knew that we wanted to start a company. And by the way, that was not all about just wanting to build an identity product. A lot of it, at least to me, was wanting to build a company, the type of company that I would enjoy working for, that will treat people the way that I thought companies should. Like a lot of it was about, management or kind of people agenda. That we showed.
Giving people a place to practice their craft that they're happy to be at, happy to show up every day.
A true team, a winning team that helps each other, that works together, that tries to achieve, a goal together. And I think that's something that I was equally important to me as building a great cybersecurity product.
It's a great thought and so important, especially in this work, to have a team of people that are passionate about the mission and then enjoy the ride, because it is a ride. At what point did you guys and how did you guys come to this identity problem set? Were you evaluating different types of threats or looking at gaps in the identity space? Like how'd you guys land here?
So as I mentioned, we already kind of thought that identity is the most vulnerable, underserved kind of problem. I mean, there were a lot of IAM solutions out there, but like I mentioned before, a lot of them were not really security focused. They did security as a feature,
right?
And we thought, hey, this is like probably the biggest problem and only growing. And the solutions there are not really security focused, many of them, and even the ones who are probably solving parts of the problem. And we started talking to potential customers, let's say. I mean, there wasn't even a product, but we started talking to people, and people told us, listen, the problem with identity is not that there are no security capabilities out there. I mean, there are, right? Multi-factor authentication, privilege access management. There were all these products out there already. They said the problem was that these solutions are only covering pieces of the problem. So, you can protect your cloud applications, you can protect your VPN, you can protect this and that, but But that's not a holistic solution. There's no way to bring these security controls to all the different systems that companies need to protect. So you know how it is. If you lock the front door but the window is open, the attacker can just choose to go to the systems that you're not able to protect. And that's what we decided to do, to find a way to bring all those great security controls everywhere, just across the entire infrastructure.
That's great. And that's a great segue to the platform you guys built itself, because, and it's really interesting. Like, so many of the things that you guys do hit home for me in conversations I have with customers as well. So, and feel free to correct me if I butcher, any of, sort of the story here, but you guys will essentially MFA and anything that can't do MFA with other vendors or other products, and you guys will either extend or overlay the PAM capabilities. In addition to all that, you guys will do it for things like PowerShell, which we have to talk about. And then you guys will monitor and discover the service accounts and overlay those as well. Did I sort of cover the broad landscape?
Yeah. All right. We really specialize in, think about our solution as bringing identity security measures everywhere, even to the places where it was impossible until now, where no other solution could. And these things are, you mentioned PowerShell, or all these command line tools that attackers use all the time, or service accounts, which are, your non-human identities that just can't do regular MFA. They can't.
Right. Yeah.
Or critical infrastructure in industrial networks or legacy systems, or all these things that were neglected, the blind spots of identity that attackers know about, and that's why they target them in every ransomware attack, in every data breach. They go for these things, for the command line tools, for the legacy protocols, for the infrastructure. We found a way to add modern identity security to all these things without having to modify them or to integrate with them. That was really the breakthrough.
Yeah. There's a couple of use cases I think are really interesting. Like, I talk to folks that, their insurance company, and this probably started in 2020, so you guys were already well on your way. Their insurance company is telling them, I can't give you a cyber policy unless you MFA all of these things. And what do we do? I can't MFA some of these older apps. And you guys just so squarely solve that problem for the industry, where insurance is trying to de-risk and companies need to get a policy at a reasonable price, and you guys sort of fit perfectly squarely in the middle there.
Exactly, and insurance and regulations, there are a lot of drives, luckily for us, that tell people that you need to protect these assets with multi-factor authentication, privileged access management, all these controls. And customers are asking, how am I going to build these controls into these systems? It's impossible, or it will take me years, or too much money and effort. And we found a way to do it. And because of it, as you mentioned, all these insurance companies, we work close with all of them. And you go to AIG today, they'll tell you we are the recommended solution, and many others will do the same.
Right.
And customers come to us because of it, because if we can actually bring identity security everywhere, and we can do it in a few hours, it takes to deploy, then we actually solve one of the biggest blind spots or gaps that exist in pretty much every company, and stop them from getting compliance or cyber insurance.
Another use case that hits close to home for me is, I run a lot of SOC operations for large companies, and they're somewhere in their PAM. Everyone's somewhere in your PAM journey and somewhere in your MFA journey. But the fact that these organizations can run PowerShell without checking it out, without it logging somewhere that somebody executed this PowerShell that we've never seen before, without that sort of visibility, to me, it's like such the simplest attack surface that if you add what you guys can do layer on top of it, now any unknown PowerShell that is run that's malicious. Like, let's go get it. It simplifies SOC operations. Has that been what you found as well?
Yeah, and PAM is super important because privileged users are really the kind of, they're the prime target for attackers, but it's so hard to onboard all your users to the PAM solution, especially service accounts. You try to do that, you end up breaking applications because you don't know who else is using that account, and things just start breaking. And the other thing is, people can just log into the PAM solution, check out the credentials, and just go directly to the resource. So it's a great solution, but it requires some new thinking of how to make that effective, how to make that easier and just more complete. And that's what we do. We basically connect to all the silos of identity, the legacy directories, the cloud identity solutions, the PAM solutions, everything, all of the pieces. We map all the identities, all the resources, and then we allow you to understand what are they doing and easily apply security controls. You want to protect your service accounts, it's a couple of clicks. You want to add MFA to this legacy system, now it takes a minute. So all these security controls that were already out there, they were already in the market for many, many years, but they were just so complex to deploy and sometimes impossible to some use cases. We just make them easy and we make them more holistic.
It's fantastic.
I
want to pivot for a second and talk about, and maybe this also speaks to your sort of corporate culture is, I saw that you guys open source your lateral movement detection for identity. And maybe just kind of explain that to me. Is this something that any SOC could put in place and then sort of get similar based on this, what your code finds from lateral movement across Active Directory or other sources?
Yeah, so first of all, I'll say something about our approach. I mean, our solution is able to detect threats, and it's able to prevent, to enforce policies that prevent them. We see a lot of other companies in the market that just because of how the technology works, which is, obviously we have something pretty unique in our technology. We find that one of the biggest advantages we have is our solution is active. We can block a threat, we can enforce, we can verify.
Yeah.
So a lot of the detection capabilities, which I also believe we are ahead of the market with them, but they are things that some other vendors are doing. We said, okay, we'll make that available either free or very cheap to everyone. Visibility detection. Let's make that very easy for everyone to get.
Yeah.
And then the things that only we can do, the enforcement and the prevention, are obviously things that a lot of our customers want to get immediately after. So as an example of that, the way we detect lateral movement is very unique. I think there's nothing that even comes close to it in the market. It basically looks at all the access, right? So think about it as a huge graph of all the users that connect from these devices to these resources across your entire infrastructure. And on top of it, we look for certain patterns using, very sophisticated algorithms that understand that this looks like a lateral movement. It's not a user, it's someone moving from device A to B, and then they switch to another account, and they move to device C. It's all kind of patterns that look like lateral movement. So we built a tool that does that, and everyone can download it and use it. It's called LATMA, lateral movement, for every company to use and to detect as an analyzer. And we are obviously including this and many, many more things in our product, but we also try to make this and a few other tools available to everyone, and you can find them on our website.
We'll include a link to that as well in our show notes. And it really speaks to the confidence in the platform itself that you guys make everyone's life so much easier across all these use cases, that the actual detections, which you can imagine other companies might covet, you're like, no, just take it. We found a better way to detect malicious activity. We should share it with the world, which again is why I mentioned that it really speaks to a solid corporate culture.
Yeah, I believe that if you have a good product, then eventually customers, if they like it, if they actually if it exceeds their expectations, they tell others about it, and people come to you. I think that I wanted to build a very special technology that solves a big problem in a unique way, and if we do that properly, we are okay with sharing a lot of the knowledge, a lot of the tools. We believe that customers will come to us, and this is what happens. We are seeing amazing traction now. I mean, we saw over the last year, which was not obviously not an easy year for many companies. We saw more than 100% growth in our revenues.
That's incredible.
We have more than 100 new customers joining us every quarter. So we are seeing great traction, and I think it's a sign to the value that the platform brings to the customers we have. I hope.
Yeah. Absolutely. Congratulations. And I guess one final question where does Silverfort go, in the next 5 years in terms of expanding the platform and the threat landscape coverage?
So I believe that we have the potential, the ability to really build the world's first end-to-end identity security platform. And when I say end-to-end, I mean that it will just cover everything, not just cloud applications, not just remote access to the network, not just on-prem, not just one environment, but everything that people can access. Legacy, modern, humans, machines, privileged, non-privileged.
Yeah.
Just an end-to-end solution for identity security. As I mentioned, I actually don't want to touch anything that is identity infrastructure. So we're not here to compete with Okta, Microsoft, all the companies that do your identity infrastructure itself. I want to build the unified layer of security on top of all of it. And I want to make security holistic, unified, and also easy. I think that identity security has been too complex for so many years.
Insanely
if I can
complex.
Make it easy, if I can allow any small company, and then we work with some of the largest companies in the world, but also we work with some of the smallest companies. If I can make identity security available to everyone, everywhere, that's really, to me, would be a dream, right? And
absolutely,
I think we are on the way to do it. It will, obviously, we're adding more and more things to our product. I think our team innovates in a way that is not trivial for a company that is not a small startup anymore. We still launch amazing new products. What we just did for service accounts, for non-human identities, I think that's revolutionary. And that's something that we are building now and customers love. So we want to continue doing that, and then, hopefully be able to build the next market leader in identity security.
Incredible, Hed. Congratulations and thank you for doing this. And looking forward to seeing you guys at Innovate and continue to work with you guys. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for doing this. I think it's a great thing that you're doing for this community. So thank you very much, and have a great year.
Take care.